take taxes to the restaurant hosting the golf dinner. So I suggest we really step up what we do. And let me start the import substitution session. We'll be discussing import substitution proposals from BRICS as Shanghai Cooperation Organization and CIS member states. I'd like to pass on the floor to those who try to solve this problem. I'd like to pass on the floor to Anna Kilp, a junior scientific fellow from the Scientific Center of the Academy of Sciences. And Anna will brief us on the therapy of viral infections with the help of virulicides and anti-inflammatory drugs. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to see you. My name is Anna Kilp. I'm indeed a junior scientific fellow of the molecular biology sector. Vasily and I are colleagues. And I will expand more on the subject that you just touched upon. Viral infection treatment with the help of virulicides and anti-inflammatory drugs. Is there a pointer or a clicker here? What do we mean by virulicides? Antiviral drugs might be the term that is more popular with you, but these are drugs that directly affect the viruses, destroy them, or have an impact on their penetrating the cells or replicating. Viruses are different. There are lipid-containing shells viruses that can be easily inactivated by virulicides, among other things. And these are the viruses that I will cover in my presentation. That includes coronaviruses, influenza viruses, herpes viruses, and there are viruses that do not contain lipids. These are parvoviruses, for instance. This is a micro image of a drug with nanoparticles of silver. The virucide activity has been proven, and they inhibit proteases that take an active part in generating S proteins. And silver nanoparticles stop the viral penetration into cells. These are flu viruses particles, and shown on the right-hand side are the damaged spikes of the influenza virus. This is a more concentrated image of the particles. What changes do we see in respiratory infections? First and foremost, we see interstitial pneumonia. We try to model the coronavirus spread in chicken, and this is the image of the interstitial pneumonia that we saw. Exudate in parenchyma affected bronchi and fibrosis, fibrotic inflammation in the vessels and arteries. It's another interesting question. How come infectious bronchitis can provoke other infections such as AIL and others? When we did the ELISA assay, we saw infectious bronchitis affecting the tracheal mucosa. That was on day 1, on day 20. infectious bronchitis virus IBV destroys the villi, and that paves the way for AIL that infect trachea easier. This is a question that was raised yesterday. Unfortunately, I followed yesterday's presentations online. How come gazation in IBV or aerosol might not be as effective as administering virulicide in the water, in drinking water? This drug contains synthetic ribonucleases, and they have been proven to suppress viral particles. Aerosol administration did not, after aerosol administration, did not detect this virus in trachea, but in interstitia and in the lungs, the virus still persisted. So we drew a conclusion that the drug primarily affected the upper parts of the respiratory duct and airways. We modeled two opposing drugs. The Lumansa had a resorptive effect, and both drugs were administered in drinking water. One of them was absorbed, while Glitzavir did not have that effect. And we also modeled a coronavirus infection, in other words, infectious bronchitis. Lumansa was well absorbed, and it circulated in the blood, reached the lungs, and suppressed the reaction. And the clinical process was clearly visible in the intestine. And it was just the opposite for Glitzavir, which means that suppressing the process in the lungs might not always be good. If you don't see it, it doesn't mean that it disappears in the gut. It will still persist there in the mucosa. It will replicate and affect other tissues. Doxycycline is another good example. Yeah, I will speed up. Is it an antibacterial or an anti-inflammatory drug? We believe that it's an anti-inflammatory drug because it has a very limited action mechanism. It does not suppress lymphocytes or specific immunity, but it suppresses pseudo-eosinophils and has a good anti-inflammation effect in the lungs without reducing the efficacy of the vaccine strain in the gut if you administer it with drinking water. This is the main slide of my presentation on how to use virulicides. Aerosols are not ruled out, of course, but we should use it intranasally rather than in aerosol. However, they should be combined. I mean, routes of administration should be combined. That's drinking water and aerosol administration. This is an overall summary of our experiment, which clearly shows that virulicides in drinking water reduce the virus concentration in the intestine 5 to 7-fold, and in lungs 1 to 2-fold. Sorry, 1.2-fold. we developed guidelines to evaluate the efficacy of various pharmaceutical drugs. You can take a closer look at these guidelines, and you will find additional information there. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you for a wonderful presentation. It was very interesting. Any questions from the floor? Hold on a second, I will bring you the mic. Thank you so much for a very interesting presentation. I was just wondering, please go back to the slide with the doxycycline and the gene expression. I saw interleukin 6 mentioned there, but what other genes and what happened with them after you administered doxycycline?
С какими-то регуляторными молекулами иммунного ответа, этого каскада воспалительного процесса. Мнение это очень интересное, оно вызывает большой резонанс среди слушателей, поэтому немножко побольше, пожалуйста.
Would you please give us more details on the effect of doxycycline on the gene expression? We measured the gene expression in the gut, and as is clear from the slide, we studied interleukin 6, which is the main pro-inflammatory gene NFK beta that becomes presented at the early stages, and FCR receptor that activates macrophages. So basically, what we demonstrated was that the inflammation activity in the gut was not as high, but it was very pronounced in the lungs. The anti-inflammatory effect was not pronounced in the gut, like I said. The inflammatory process was suppressed in the gut, but yeah, hold on a second, I'm totally confused. The inflammatory process was suppressed in the gut, and the lung situation was also good, and the active strain no longer replicated in the gut. So there was no negative effect when the administration route was drinking water. Well, I might not be able to give you more details on certain questions, but you will find additional information in the guidelines. You can submit your questions in the chat box, and it would be a great venue for us to share our views on that. Please send a hyperlink to the article and the guidelines to the chat box because it's very interesting. It's a very interesting project that deserves much attention. Thank you so much.